Peeta had two goals going into the 74th Hunger Games, and neither of them was surviving. He wanted to help Katniss win and stay true to himself. This is all based on the book canon of the trilogy. There are some mild spoilers for Sunrise on the Reaping. They're at the end, and I will give you a warning. Peeta worked with Haymitch to craft his plan via interview and forming an alliance with the careers. But since we only got the story through Katniss's POV, we don't know exactly how Peeta's plan unfolded. However, we can get a pretty solid idea of it, so I'm pretty confident that Peeta's desire not to let the Capitol make him a piece in their games was his goal from the jump. I can see him thinking about that every year going into the Reaping, telling himself that if the worst were to happen, he would not let the games turn him into some kind of monster. Peeta is innately empathetic, he's kind, he's generous. We get some insight about this from his conversation on the rooftop with Katniss the night before the games. Earlier that evening, after Peeta revealed his crush on Katniss during his interview, she attacked him. It goes down a bit differently in the books than in the movie, and Peeta is actually injured. Right when Peeta got out of the elevator into their suite in the training center, Katniss just charges at him. She slams her palms into his chest, he loses his balance and crashes into an ugly urn. The urn tips and shatters into hundreds of pieces. Peeta lands in the shards and blood immediately flows from his hands. Peeta's shocked. He says, "What was that for?" And Katniss yells that he had no right to say those things about her. And then the rest of the team arrives. Effie's freaking out. She's asking what's going on, if Peeta fell, and he says, "After she shoved me." Peeta's angry here. I see some Peeta haters who say he's a pushover and weak, and that's not true, and how dare you talk about my son like that. Then Haymitch jumps into the confrontation. He's mad at Katniss too. She says to him, "This was your idea, wasn't it? Turning me into some kind of fool in front of the entire country?" Peeta admits it was his idea, that Haymitch just helped him with it, and he says this as he's literally pulling bits of pottery out of his palms. So this crush reveal was Peeta's idea, assuming he's telling the truth, and he brought it to Haymitch. I think this idea solidified for Peeta after Katniss scored an 11 in training, since by the next morning, he had asked Haymitch to coach him separately for his interview. We know Peeta already had a crush on Katniss since he was 5. He spent all this time with her leading up to the games when they're in the Capitol. They had been coached to stick together and act united, like as friends, by Haymitch. So I think Peeta's affection grew for Katniss during this time. Plus, he knew and saw how skilled Katniss was as an archer and just general survival skills. And then her high training score confirmed just how great her odds were of winning. Even his evil mom thought Katniss could win the games. I don't think Peeta believed he could win at all. And I don't think he actually wanted to. Peeta would know that if he did win the games, it would mean he'd done terrible things, like things he would hate himself over forever. With all that in mind, it seems most likely that he approached Haymitch the night they got their training scores, revealed his long-standing adoration for Katniss, his belief that she really could win, and asked Haymitch to help him help her as best as he could. I'm sick. Peeta is very emotionally intelligent, so it makes sense that he thought of the idea for the interview love bomb. Peeta would understand that presenting Katniss as the object of his long-standing affection would appeal to the Capitol people. Haymitch pretty much said this to Katniss after the interview. "That boy just gave you something you could never achieve on your own. He made you look desirable. You were about as romantic as dirt until he said he wanted you. Now they all do. You're all they're talking about. The star-crossed lovers from District 12. And Haymitch is something I've always found really inappropriate. He grabs Katniss by the shoulders, he pins her against the wall, but he says, "It's all a big show. It's all how you're perceived." Katniss shoves him away, saying how she should have been informed of this plan. Here's how Katniss describes Peeta's interview in the book. He has the audience from the get-go, and they're laughing, they're shouting out. He plays up the baker's son thing, comparing the tributes to the breads from their district, then has a funny anecdote about the perils of the Capitol showers. "Tell me, do I still smell like roses?" he asks Caesar. And then there's a whole run where they take turns sniffing each other that brings down the house. It's important that Peeta starts out the interview this way before getting to the love bomb. He's getting the audience on his side, endearing them to him. His charming small town life as a baker, the funny self-deprecating story of struggling with the shower is also like a veiled exaltation of the Capitol folks, as if he finds them so sophisticated. He needs them to trust his judgment about Katniss being desirable. So Caesar and Peeta were sniffing each other, and the fact that Peeta is asking if he smells like roses, the significance of roses in the story like comes into play later, but this was a breadcrumb. I see Snow like spreading his scent, his dominance onto the tributes via these showers, if that makes sense. And this is the second mention of a rose in the book, period. The first one was during the opening ceremony chariot ride when Katniss caught a red rose that someone threw. Her one positive experience with the rose. Plus, going into this interview, Peeta and Haymitch have a plan to get him into the career pack. By being with the careers, Peeta would have the chance to try to steer them away from Katniss, and if and when they find her, Peeta could flip on them and fight them off. That's basically his motive, and I think getting him into the career pack was Haymitch's idea. I doubt Peeta would think that it was even a possibility for a boy from District 12 to get in with them. Presenting Peeta as this likable guy with a solid training score of 8 helps his case to get in with the careers. He needs to seem like an asset, but also non-threatening. In Catching Fire, Haymitch says, "Who makes up the career pack is generally agreed upon before the games begin. Peeta barely got in with them last year." It seems like it's pretty much up to the career mentors if they're gonna let Peeta in. I imagine the career tributes revere their mentors, so they'll follow their instructions. We know Finnick was one of the mentors at the 74th games, and Finnick's in District 4, it's a career district, so he and Haymitch most likely had a solid relationship, but it doesn't seem like Haymitch is tight with the other career mentors based on Catching Fire, like 1 and 2. It had to have been somewhat of a complex pitch, since the love bomb makes it seem like Peeta's allegiance is with Katniss. Based on what the career tributes say about Peeta, they believe he made up the whole love thing to help himself. So they were led to believe that, likely by their mentors and by Peeta when he teamed up with them. So possibly Haymitch presented that story to the career mentors and said they could use Peeta's brawn and knife skills in the beginning of the games. Like, he got a good training score. I'll go more into what happened in the arena in a bit, but back to that interview. Caesar asks him if he has a girlfriend back home. Peeta hesitates, then gives an unconvincing shake of his head. "Handsome lad like you, there must be some special girl. Come on, what's her name?" says Caesar. Peeta sighs. "Well, there is this one girl. I've had a crush on her ever since I can remember, but I'm pretty sure she didn't know I was alive until the reaping." Sounds of sympathy from the crowd. Unrequited love they can relate to. "She have another fellow?" asks Caesar. "I don't know, but a lot of boys like her," says Peeta. He's making a point that Katniss is desired by many, not just him. This way, Katniss's allure is presented more as a fact versus Peeta's subjective opinion. Caesar says, "So here's what you do. You win. You go home. She can't turn you down then, eh?" I don't think it's going to work out. Winning won't help in my case. Peeta blushes a beet red and stammers out, because she came here with me." That line has me kicking my feet every time. Even though Peeta is saying this as a part of strategy, his crush is still completely real, so I see his blush and stammer as totally genuine. What he's doing is scary. Not only telling someone you've had a crush on them your whole life, but doing it on national, required viewing television. What makes Peeta's love bomb play so great is that it's rooted in the truth. It needs to appear real to be effective. Hence the importance of Katniss's genuine, shocked reaction. Katniss sees her face on screen, mouth half open in a mix of surprise and protest. Reminder, in the book, the tributes sit on the stage during everyone else's interviews. It's portrayed like this in Catching Fire, but in the Hunger Games movie, Katniss is backstage watching this. "Oh, that's a piece of bad luck," says Caesar. The crowd is murmuring in agreement. A few have even given agonized cries. It worked on the crowd. They're immediately invested in this tragic love story. "She didn't know?" Peeta shakes his head. "Not until now." He wants the crowd to know that this is news to Katniss. It would be unappealing to the crowd if Katniss had known and then rejected Peeta at some point in the past. She's on camera, visibly blushing. Caesar closes out the interview. The roar of the crowd is deafening. Peeta has absolutely wiped the rest of us off the map with his declaration of love for me. Every screen is now dominated by a shot of Peeta and me, separated by a few feet that in the viewers' heads can never be breached. Poor, tragic us. But I know better. LOL, Katniss, no you don't. Everyone is obsessed with them now that there's a palatable teen romance for them to latch on to. I think Peeta definitely misjudged how Katniss would take this love bomb. He's totally unprepared by her aggressive response. I think having this rosy perception of her from his crush led him to believe that she would be more calm. I do think Katniss is rightfully upset by being in the dark about this, even if it was necessary to the plan. Though she could have just used her words instead of shoving him. But you gotta give her some grace. Like, she's about to go into an arena arena to fight to the death. Like, she is allowed to be unhinged. And Peeta is also rightfully upset about being physically attacked by her. When the prep team is trying to calm Katniss down and saying her on-screen reaction looked perfect, Peeta says she's just worried about her boyfriend, meaning Gale. He's super annoyed right now. From his perspective, he is sacrificing himself for Katniss, and at the first stage of this plan, she is screaming and attacking him. His comment makes Katniss blush, and she says she doesn't have a boyfriend, knowing that he means Gale. Whatever, says Peeta, but I bet he's smart enough to know a bluff when he sees it. Besides, you didn't say you loved me, so what does it matter? He just called his own love bomb a bluff. He doesn't want her to know the depth of his true feelings for her. I think he hopes that she sees him as an ally, that he was trying to help her and himself increase their odds, get more sponsors in that interview. Slowly, Katniss begins to realize that Peeta did help her, but she still feels somewhat used, which is fair. Throughout the time in training, Katniss was trying to keep him at a distance. Like, even at one point after he genuinely made her laugh randomly, she told him, don't let's pretend when there's no one around. As in, behave like friends the way Haymitch told them to. And after she said that, they only talked in front of other people. She didn't want to get attached to Peeta since it would be a liability going into the games. Back on the day of the reaping, when they're on the train, she thought, a kind Peeta Malark is far more dangerous to me than an unkind one. Kind people have a way of working their way inside me and rooting there. And I can't let Peeta do this. Not where we're going. That's where her head's at. When she fully recognizes what his interview did for her, she feels embarrassed for attacking him and she apologizes to Peeta. He says, doesn't matter. Reminder, Peeta grew up with a physically violent mother, so he's sadly familiar with being hurt like this. He just minimizes it. His hands got pretty wrecked by what Katniss did. He had to go get medical treatment for them and they're bandaged up when he's going into the games. Now on to the second part of Peeta's plan, teaming up with the careers. Katniss gets most of the info about this after the games when they're watching the recap. Now I see what the audience saw. How he misled the careers about me, stayed awake the entire night under the Tracker Jacker tree, fought Cato to let me escape, and even while he lay in that mud bank, whispered my name in his sleep. Him whispering her name like that was not strategy. Like, he was Delulu with fever and pain, and I guess he was dreaming about Katniss. Don't talk to me. The careers accepted Peeta into their pack under the false belief that he never cared about Katniss and was only out for himself. It's not super clear what Katniss means by Peeta misled the careers about her. Possibly he lied about Katniss's intelligence and skills. He did not tell the careers how she scored in 11. Careers also said that Peeta is their best chance of finding her. They thought Katniss was dumb and fell for Peeta's sappy romance. So they're hoping Peeta could be bait to draw Katniss in, like thinking that she's safe with him. Peeta also probably misled them by literally leading them away from where he believed Katniss would go and persuade them to hunt for different tributes. It's possible Peeta realized Katniss was up in that tree the first night when she spotted him with the careers. This was when they hadn't heard the cannon go off of the girl they just attacked, and Peeta tells them that he'll go back and finish her so that the careers would move on and away from where Katniss was hiding. We never know for sure if he knew she was there though. When the careers find Katniss later on at the Tracker Jacker tree, after their initial attempts to climb the tree or shoot Katniss, Peeta persuades them to call it a night and try again in the morning, which buys Katniss a lot of time to figure out a way to escape them. And he stays up all night too, in case one of the careers gets up and tried to attack her. Once Peeta found her, he was in full guard dog mode. The next day when Katniss drops the Tracker Jacker nest on them, Peeta fulfills the rest of his initial plan. He turns on the careers and fights them off to save Katniss. Literally screams at her to run away when she's in a venom-induced haze. And he shoves her away from him. Parallel to her shoving him earlier, he gets into a fight with Cato and gets a near fatal leg wound in the process, and he would have been a goner if it weren't for the rule change that led Katniss to team up with him. How the whole 2-victor rule change came to be and how it's retracted could be a whole other deep dive, so if you want me to make a video about that, let me know in the comments. Alright, I'm pretty much done with this analysis of what Peeta's plan was going into the 74th games, but there's some more stuff I'd like to add that relates to Sunrise on the Reaping, so this is your spoiler warning. Leave now if you must. Now that we have all this info about Haymitch from Sunrise, I'm reeling over what was going through his mind when Peeta first told him that he wanted to save Katniss. Haymitch knew a lot more about her than he let on. He used to be best friends with her dad, and he was friendly with her mom back in the day too. So mentoring Katniss was going to be extremely painful no matter what. Plus, Katniss reminded him of his sweetheart, Luella, who he had wanted to protect, who he basically thought of as a little sister. And of course, Katniss had the Mockingjay pin, which previously belonged to his ally Maisie and was made by the uncle of his one true love. That's a lot. During Haymitch's games, he also didn't think he had any chance of making it out alive, and he wanted to sacrifice himself to help other tributes and just like for the greater good. So there's Peeta standing in front of him, 16 years old, just like he was, wanting to save the girl he dreamed of marrying one day. And we know how Haymitch felt about Lenore Dove. I think while this all was very heart-wrenching for Haymitch, it was also extremely motivating, and it probably felt like somewhat of a relief to have Peeta tell him to focus on saving Katniss, like so he wouldn't feel guilty for likely favoring her. I really wish we'd gotten a longer epilogue so we could get more of Haymitch's POV on the whole thing with Peeta and Katniss, but alas. I'm so curious, what do you think was going through Haymitch's head when Peeta approached him about this? Let me know in the comments.